Hello! We're looking at another camera today, but just before we get into it, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe and click on the little bell icon if you want to be alerted when I'm uploading video. So what have we got here? It is the RunCam Racer Nano, and I thought, it's a nano camera, we've had tiny cameras before, but the use of the word nano instead of micro suggests it's smaller, and I have to say it is. Let's take a look at what's in the box. And really we'll have to have a close-up view to see things better. It's all kind of squished in there, but if we reach down to get the camera, it looks like this. It's so small. It's kind of like, don't sneeze when you're holding it, else it will blow away. And it is a lot smaller. If I hold this, this is a Foxeer Micro Predator. It is huge in comparison. It is small, it is tiddly, it is very light. Obviously, one way of getting the best out of it is to put it on a very small quad, but you could of course mount it on a regular quad and go very, very lightweight because it weighs, I don't know, it weighs not much. I'll put a actual weight on the screen when I can be able to look it up, but it's practically not there. The other things you get in the box are this tiny little mount and a few screws. Don't get an awful lot with it. It will apparently allow you to put OSD information on, like your name, so presumably you can plug an OSD control board in there, which isn't supplied. It also says it gives gesture control, the idea being that you can, FXT did one like this, you can hold your hand over the camera and it will detect something and then you let it go and you'll be able to change settings by doing this sort of thing. It's a bit odd, but again, when you're keeping things very small and light, you might take the very lightest, very most basic things you can get, so you might need that. So stats on it, it is a CMOS sensor. It says it's got a WDR sensor. Hopefully that means it's got a good wide dynamic range, you'd expect so. This has a 2.1mm lens, there is a 1.8mm version available. I'm just looking at myself in the camera and it just looks like I'm holding a little tiny bug. It is there, it is a camera, honest, look, there it is. Yeah, so let's have a closer look because I feel we really need to zoom in a bit, and then we'll find a quad to put it on and see how it performs. So at this point this is morphing into two reviews. So I've got the little Nano Racer here, and I was going to take the all-in-one unit from here and try and separate the VTX out, which is soldered onto and stuff, and basically put it on the back of the camera. But then we got another product through. We got the Eachine Nano VTX, which is this little thing, and that is almost a perfect size just to kind of piggyback there. It doesn't really need to piggyback, it just has to be relatively close by so I can thread it all in this. So let's briefly talk about this. What we've got is a very small VTX. What's pretty amazing about it, aside from the size, is it will do pit mode 25, 100, 200 and 400 milliwatts in something this size, and it supports smart audio, and as you can see it's so tiny, so it should be just perfect for sorting this out. This comes in, it's not fancy packaging, you get it in this little thing. It comes with this and these instructions. I'd say the only limitation about this sort of thing is you've got to be careful that it's only a 5V input, so there's no power regulation, you can't just stuff whatever you need in there. But it's also got a 5V output, so that can power the camera. We can just put 5V in this, power the camera, and then take the video and the smart audio out and stuff. So these go together quite well if you're looking at a sort of real micro build. So I'm going to attempt now to take this camera out. This camera's actually so small, it's smaller than this, so it needs a little bit of work, and put this in. So let's see what happens. Now, I had intended to take pictures of this camera next to another camera and actually shoot some pictures of the VTX, both of which I neglected to do before I put them in here. And I don't want to get them out again, because if anybody's got a Southline and ever dealt with those little nuts, they are a pain. And this was, even though this is a very small camera, that still took some putting in there. So just to explain what we've got, your normal micro camera like this one is a 19mm square. The difference with the nano camera is it is a 14mm square, and that makes a hell of a difference. I mean, these come in various shapes. Although the mounting holes are 19mm across, the way this part is shaped differs. Like this is a bit chunkier, although it's still 19mm. And if you think, well, does that 5mm make a difference? Yeah, I mean, I used this as my sort of test bed, and if you tried to put that in there, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't get anywhere near through because it's much wider. To put it in perspective, this was the all-in-one VTX and camera I took out, and if you compare it there to the micro size, you can see it is significantly smaller. So this one is actually a 14mm by 14mm, but it's more tapered. You see how small that lens is in comparison to the one we've got in there. It's quite a bit smaller. So what I had to do, just in case you're thinking of doing this yourself, in order to fit it through, I used this spare part as my test one. I had to cut a little section just there, and that would allow the TPU just to bow out a little bit further, allowing me to stuff the camera through there. And that's what we've done. The camera's stuffed through. You can see just the mounting holes at the side where that would be. That's all just locked in with friction. Ditto with the VTX there. Quite close to the back, it's just sort of sitting there absolutely fine. So there was a little bit of setup on the OSD as well. I'll show you that bit now.
So here's the camera, and I'm just checking out it was up the right way before I decided to put the lens cap on and just go through the settings with a little joystick. And we've got the normal pick adjustment here, brightness, contrast, sharpness, all that stuff, as well as white balance. If we exit out of that, we can hold the, I think it's the up button, I can't remember, and this takes us to the OSD setup. And there's only one thing here, because this only allows a 3.5 to 5 volt input, it doesn't show the voltage on the screen, so you can show the pilot name or not. The other stuff you've got in there is the things that can be used by gesture control. Now I haven't got gesture control on at the moment, but what you can do if you enable gesture control is you can go through some preset scenes for sort of flying at night and other things by basically, as the camera powers up, you hold your hand over it and you take it away. And you can do the same thing there for changing between 16:9 and 4:3 and PAL and NTSC. I've changed to PAL here manually, and I don't think I'm going to change my scene, which is why I haven't enabled gesture control. And you can see as I've done so, I need to go and just rearrange my OSD a bit, because obviously I've got more horizontal lines in PAL.
So here we are, the Sailfly, now complete with the RunCam Nano Racer and the Eachine Nano VTX. Not sure about the size of the antenna on the VTX. I mean, it's quite rigid, so I'm hoping it's not going to bend over anything. I couldn't really secure it with anything else, so hoping for the best there. That might need swapping out. Choosing today, it's a very useful day to do this. We've got, if we look down here, we've got bits of shadow and light all the way down, because the sun's up there but it's quite low in the sky. Therefore it would be a really good test to see how this camera handles light and shade. The previous stock camera, just awful. I couldn't see anything. It just looked like a white light at the end coming down here. I couldn't pick myself out, so be interesting to see if this outperforms it. I would hope so. Hopefully it's going to look like a good camera. We'll find out.
Just before we test a new camera, I just wanted to remind you guys of what the stock camera was like, because I really hated it. Essentially, it was fine if you didn't want to look more than about 20 feet in front of you, at which point it just became this sort of whiteness in the distance, which wasn't great for picking stuff out. Same on the way back. As soon as you get some sunlight going in, it really does struggle, and it's so hard to see things like branches and stuff. But let's move over to the new camera and see how that did. Oh my god, look! Blueness! I knew the sky wasn't a bright white colour. Yeah, this is much better. It's hard to come up with words to describe how much better this is when you can actually see where you're going. And this is some tricky light conditions. As I said, you've got the sun coming in through the trees and it's kind of lighting it, and it's flicking and going back into shadow. And I'm aware now that I'm trying to do two reviews at once. So one is the camera. The camera's looking quite good. The other thing is the VTX. So I've started off here in 25 milliwatts. You can see the F11 there. And I wanted to see how this does in terms of, do we get noise? Do we get static? And I feel we get a little bit of noise around the greens. You can see it if you really look hard. There's a sort of sparkliness to it, which isn't quite perfect. But the picture is so much better than it used to be. I'm so happy. But what I did after this first flight, because I was just having fun flying around, is come down and whop it up to 200 milliwatts to see if that made a difference or not. Yeah, and although I keep saying smart audio during this review, I'm just reminding myself that it uses the TRAMP protocol. I almost used smart audio as a generic term for being able to use a UART to control power output, but of course TRAMP is another protocol that's very good and it has slightly more values you can use as well. Anyway, so I'm going to do that first bit of just the run down the main strip again at 200 milliwatts so you can compare. I feel there's a little bit less noise. What we got from the original was that, the signal was holding up very well. There wasn't really any static or anything to speak of. The question is, is there more noise or less noise in, where you've got big areas of blue or you can see the green of the trees? I'm sort of looking for sort of sparkly little artifacts around there to tell me how good the quality is. But generally speaking, I'm really, really happy. This has transformed this quad because I really liked flying the quad. I just couldn't see where I was going well enough. So I've been going through and I changed the receiver out because the original receiver was rubbish, and now I've changed both the camera and the VTX. This is a brilliant little toothpick now. I really like flying it. But I suppose the question is it really still a Sailfly X if I've changed this much? I mean, the flight controller / ESC board's the same, and so are the motors, but the rest of it is thankfully changed for the better. So I did want to try and fly in a little range of places. I want to do some range testing, but I had problems with forestry workers in the way and then builders in the field I wanted to use. So I found this place in the trees, and it sort of goes around a little bit of a dogleg, and I thought that'd be a useful test to see how the VTX does. Again, we're staying on 200 milliwatts. It's not a huge distance. It's just the fact we've gone through a few trees there, and you can kind of see that we are some distance away. Again, in any camera in this situation, it's not that easy to pick your way through. This is doing a reasonable good job, and I'm getting a nice picture out of the camera. I have to say, this is fairly terrifying to do in the Sailfly because it is a fast little quad. The camera is angled up a lot. You can probably see how tilted back I am. In the second run, I went a little bit faster, or not too fast, but then I had a really fun problem when I did the turn here, and I tried to sort of get down low and go for it, and I didn't notice that branch, and so I had a nice long walk to go and get that again. So I did manage to get to my regular field eventually, just to try and do some range testing. The wind at this point was really blowing. Still on 200 milliwatts, and this is going against the wind in this direction. Just wanted to make sure it could, get a reasonable distance. But again, I'm sort of conscious that there's building work going on. I didn't want to fly over anybody or be in anybody's face. So yeah, you can tell this is downwind, can't you? It's a lot easier and a lot smoother. So I decided to go out the other direction. So I'd be going with the wind on the outbound journey and then against the wind on the way back. So the reverse of how you'd want to do it. Here we are going for it there. So again, going with the wind, not a problem. Absolutely fine, just dawdling along, no worries at all. This is, again, slightly terrifying to do. We're in over a field with very long grass in a quad that's, the size of a fly. If this goes down, I've got all sorts of problems because I don't use, battery-powered beepers or anything on a quad this small. You just can't do it. You see, as we're going now into the wind, my goodness, is this quad struggling? It's like, this is terrible. This thing weighs so little that a strong breeze like this, and it really was quite strong, is really killing it. But I was just quite glad to get it. As soon as I'm over this fence here, I'm like, yeah, that's better. I can recover that a bit easier. And you can see we can fly around the trees quite happily. All good. So yeah, range of this VTX, that was on 200 milliwatts. It obviously didn't even bat an eyelid to that. I've no doubt in the right platform, and I would guess your larger quads or your planes, you can go for kilometers, especially if you put the power all the way up for 400 milliwatts. Didn't have any issues in the fact I was running this in a very confined space within that TPU. I didn't seem to get any overheating or heat problems from that. It just kept flying fine. Of course, the flights on this sort of quad only go for about 3 minutes at a time, so make of that what you will. But of course we did have some cooling as we were flying through the sort of air and the wind as it goes there. But yeah, this quad's an awful lot of fun now. I had a great lot of fun flying with it. Well, finally the little Sailfly X is flying as I wanted it to, and I only had to swap out practically everything.
But of course I'm not reviewing this, I'm talking about the camera and the VTX, and I think they did excellently. I think the VTX especially is a bit of a steal because it's really cheap, it's really small, and you can connect it to practically anything, and of course it runs Tramp there. Again, the camera is very good, but the only fly in the ointment there is the price. The price of the RunCam Nano Racer. RunCam tend to think themselves a bit of a premium brand, so all their stuff's a bit more expensive. So yeah, the RunCam Racer Nano at the moment is about £30, which is quite pricey for a camera this size. Now, I showed some of the video of this, a raw video, to my Patreon supporters. You can still join, it's not too late, get in there. And one of the things they mentioned was the price of this, and was the regular RunCam Nano 2 any good? It's a good question. The answer is I don't know. It's about half the price. It's the same dimensions. You lose the ability to sort of change between PAL and NTSC and 16:9 and 4:3, and you don't have any gesture control. Other than that, I don't know if the camera workings are the same, then it probably is a very good alternative to this. And there's another camera which I haven't got. I think I should be getting this at some point. Is the Caddx Kangaroo. Not that much cheaper, about £23 at the moment UK prices. Same dimensions, very very small again, and it looks like it should perform very well. But again, I haven't tested it, so I don't know. So yeah, the Nano Racer does very well. It's a little bit on the pricey side. There may be some cheaper alternatives, but at the moment I don't know how they are. But I can tell you that the Nano Racer is very good. I'm really, really happy because I really do enjoy flying this. And now I can see where I'm going. It makes me enjoy it more. But like I said, you can put it on your 5" if you want. You put it on 7" or whatever. Keeping the weight down is always a good thing in any quad. And ditto, small planes, you can fly for a long way on that VTX, and such a light setup. Excellent. Anyway, this has been both the RunCam Nano Racer camera and the Eachine Nano VTX, and these were both supplied for review by Banggood, so thanks to Banggood. And of course there'll be links down below showing you where you can find all these on Banggood's site. Hope that's been helpful, and until next time, catch you later. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.